I'm going to preface this video by saying that the government of Republican Rome is hugely complex, and this is my attempt to simplify it down as much as possible into three key components: the Senate, the Assemblies, and the Magistrates. So to guide your notes, here are the key questions. Number 1, what was the role of the Senate and who was in it? Number 2, what was the role of the Assemblies and who did they favour? Number 3, what did the magistrates do? And number 4, what was the difference between the Optimates and the Populares? As we saw in the previous topic, after they overthrew their kings, the Romans reformed their political structure to prevent one man from holding too much power for too long. Therefore, in the Republic, positions of leadership were shared and temporary, and they also introduced checks and balances on them. This means that the elders and people of Rome could have a say on what these leaders did. There were three key components to the government of Republican Rome. The first and oldest component was the Senate. This was a senior advisory body who would discuss laws presented to it by the magistrates and give its official advice to the voting assemblies to consider. The name comes from the Latin word for elder, so senex means old man, and the group was originally the advisors of the kings. Initially, only select patricians were able to become senators, but later on membership was opened up to anyone who had served as quaestor, which was one of the earliest magistracies that you could hold, as we'll see. Once you had become a senator, you generally held your position for life. The second component is the assemblies. These were voting bodies made up of Rome's adult male citizen population, and they were divided according to their class or the tribe which they originally came from, so where they were born effectively. They would elect magistrates to represent them, and they would also vote on laws which were presented to them by these magistrates. While this was seen by the Romans as the democratic component of their government, it's important to be aware that the voting system favoured the wealthy, and the logic behind this was that they were thought to contribute more to the state. The third key component of the Roman government was the magistrates. These were elected political officials, and they generally served for 1 year at a time. The positions belonged to a hierarchy called the cursus honorum, and men were expected to work their way up, taking on roles at the right age and in the right order. At the top of the cursus honorum were the two senior magistrates called the consuls. They held imperium, which means power, and in this sense it refers to their ability to preside over the Senate, assemblies, and armies of Rome. Below them, in order, we have the praetors, then the aediles, then the quaestors at the bottom. Another important office introduced later in the Republic was that of the tribune, sometimes called the tribune of the plebs or the plebeian tribune. They represented the interests of the plebeians. They were sacrosanct, and this meant that they could not be hurt or harmed. They also had the power of veto, which meant that they were able to stop a political decision or discussion from taking place. Some other key magistrates to know, firstly, proconsuls and praetors. These are former consuls and praetors serving as provincial governors, and they would manage part of Rome's territory outside of Italy. In times of emergency, the Senate could elect a dictator. This was a single magistrate who had the power of life and death, and he would serve for 6 months only. over the course of the Republic, tensions arose between two different factions in the Senate. It's important to be aware these are factions, not political parties. The Optimates, which means best men in Latin, wanted to preserve the privileges of the Senate and the patricians. They wanted those people on top to stay on top. The Populares were the people's men, and they would appeal to the plebeian mass to gain power and influence. It was conflict between these two groups that eventually brought about the Civil War which ended the Republic.